Welcome to On the Road with Riley. I'm Riley Mulherkar, and this week we're checking in with a friend of mine who's literally been on the road for the past week. My friend Cosimo Fabrizio is a fantastic young guitar player. You may recognize him from Skane's Domain a few weeks ago. And this past week he traveled to Minneapolis to join the protest and to stand in solidarity with the family of George Floyd. So I want to give him a call. I want to hear about what he saw out there. I want to hear his thoughts about what he's been up to, what we can all do, what are the steps forward. We're going to get into that. And, of course, we'll play a tune. He's one of my favorite guitar players, and he's someone I look up to very much, even though he's younger than me, quite younger than me. He makes me feel like an old man. Anyways, thanks for watching. Let's give him a call. Cosimo, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too. How you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm so glad to get a chance to talk to you because we started this series, we called it On the Road with Riley, and the title was a little bit tongue-in-cheek because it was like no one can be traveling right now because we're all stuck in quarantine.
Sure.
So I was checking in with people all over as if I were going on the road, but you've literally been on the road over the week because there are moments in history and in our lives where we got to get up and move and we got to go and we got to be a part of something.
Absolutely.
And I always have looked up to you as an artist who also is deeply engaged in activism and what's going on in this country. So tell us about where you've been, what you've been doing. I want to hear everything.
I was fortunate enough to be able to travel to Minneapolis a couple of days ago. I wanted to pay my respects to George Floyd, his family. I wanted to be a part of the protest and demonstrate peacefully, and I wanted to learn. I wanted to see what was actually going on the ground. It was the best impulse gut decision I've made in my life so far, to just like wake up and say, let's go do this, because I learned so much by being there, which, we could get into. And then I was on the road the past couple of days, just got back to upstate New York, where I'll be for a couple of days quarantine before I go home.
In terms of the moment when you arrived, I mean, tell me what was that like, and what did you find yourself getting involved with once you were in Minneapolis?
I was traveling with a friend who was from rural Minnesota. So neither of us really knew Minneapolis. And when we got there, it was a ghost town, which was surprising. Where we were in downtown Minneapolis hadn't gotten hit, but even just driving in, there was something in the air, and you could see smoke from the buildings that had still been burnt the night before. We were seeing heavy police presence going into the city. The first night we were there, peaceful protest, people sitting in, people speaking, just with love in their heart about where we were at as a country and as communities, and where we needed to go. The second day we were there, we were passing out water bottles from a truck we were in, and people were just marching and singing songs onto the freeway. And as we're on the ramp getting down to the freeway, we see thousands of people start to run back to us screaming. And we had heard something about a truck running through the crowd, and there was, in chaos, stories get a little mixed up, something about shooting. And when we go home on TV, we saw that a dude just ran a semi-truck through the crowd. And we were right there. And again, it wasn't anyone on the protesters' end doing anything wrong. It was just a fanatical person saying, I don't like the fact that these people are voicing what they're voicing and they're getting attention, whatever. When we went home to the hotel room, we saw exactly where we were at on local news. They said, it was something like, Jimbo, yeah, this guy ran the truck through the crowd, but, I'm hearing from the ground that he didn't mean to hurt anyone. He was just trying to scare them off, which is, that was my reaction exactly. I was with Jacob Melcher too, great trombone player. And we just looked at each other and said, how is that what happened? So when a dude driving a truck tries to barrel through a crowd of thousands of peaceful protesters, the first thing that they cover is, oh, well, he was just trying to scare him off. He wasn't trying to do anything. But when peaceful protesters gather in numbers and voice their support for justice and their anger at a system that is broken, they are all anarchists on the brink of being destructive and chaotic. And that's when I lost my trust. That's when I lost my trust in the media. Voting is so important. Civically engaging that way. This election is so important for long-term change to happen, because all the policy stuff we want to talk about as it relates to whether it be defunding police, like putting limits on the amount of money that police are able to spend on like militarized goods, like rethinking the way that prison incentives are structured, which is something you also looked at when you were visiting, I know, the Equal Justice Initiative in Alabama. The awareness is there. We now have to channel that awareness, I think, immediately into voting. And once we have better leadership, not great, it doesn't even have to be great, better leadership, we can begin to think about how we take some of the things that we've begun to see are just so blatantly wrong and channel that into long-term substantive policy change.
I've been thinking, there's something about how all this can feel like it's a lot of work we have to do. It's like, oh, I'm already trying to be a musician. I'm already like, musicians don't make money as it is. And I'm already trying to pay rent and do this and that. It's like, now you want me to call this person and argue for this. And then you want me to, watch this and educate myself about this. And it can feel like all this extra work. But the thing that I always find is that when we do that work, it's like anything. It's like when I learned to play trumpet, the more we do it, the easier it is. And then there's the added benefit of connection. The rewards of these efforts are like, that's like what makes life worth living. So I think, it's hard to be hopeful. And I think sometimes the value that people put in the word hope and where's our hope and do you have hope and all that stuff, I get so tired of that conversation. But I do find whatever it is, like light in the fact that this is actually enriching to be in this. Right? Yeah.
I completely agree, man. And that's such an important point, that there are communities to be built through these times of struggle and chaos around like this very simple fundamental ideas. Like, we want justice. We want a government that works more effectively. We want people to have a fair shot at living a good life in this country. So I completely agree with you. And I hope people that you meet, I know people you meet will feel more inspired because they would have met you and been able to spend time with you. And other people who share that same drive that you and I do to move our country in a direction where in a couple of years we'll look back in this and be like, how the hell did we live like that? People need to get out and find like-minded people and work. I agree with you wholeheartedly, man.
Well, on that note, we could talk all day, but people don't want to hear us talk all day. But I know people do want to hear you play some music because, you're one of the best young guitar players out here. Is there a song that you're feeling you need to get out of you right now?
Man, I was singing about Body and Soul. I was looking at some protest music, and then I said, for me personally, I just need to listen to something that brings my spirits up a little bit. And I know this tune, I heard it at Hat City Kitchen for the first time by saxophone player Mike Lee, who's Julian's dad. And it's a tune that always lifts my spirits up. And I know you playing on it will probably lift some other spirits people up too.
Okay, well, let's do it. Body and Soul, Cosimo Fabrizio, thank you so much for all you do in the world and for talking today on the Road.
Much love, man. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching. And if you want to reach out to your representatives today, but don't know who they are or how to contact them, head over to the link in our bio. It'll take you to a website where all you have to do is enter your address, and it'll list your representatives at the federal, state, and local level, as well as how to contact them. Speaking for myself, I didn't know half the names on this list a week ago. Now, it feels so much better to know who's representing me and to be in contact with them in their offices, calling them, emailing them all day long. And if you're looking for more resources on how we can all invest in communities and divest from the police in this country, check out the Movement for Black Lives. It's a great resource. It's online. I highly recommend it. Thanks for tuning in this week, and we'll see you next week on the Road with Riley.